The Galactic Council's most experienced xenobiologist, Vex Thornscale, stared at the datapad with 4 of his 6 eyes while the remaining 2 kept watch for potential threats. Old habits from his predatory homeworld die hard, even in the sterile safety of a research station. "This cannot be accurate," he muttered, his translator struggling with the incredulous tone. The readings showed impossible numbers. Impossible, that is, if you ignored the mountain of evidence sitting right in front of him. His research partner, a methodical Zentarian named Kix Mindweave, extended 3 of her tentacles toward the holographic display. "I have run the calculation 17 times, Vex. The probability matrices remain consistent. When a human juvenile is threatened in the presence of what they call a honey badger, the survival rate of the aggressor drops to 0.001%. 0.001? 0.001? Vex's mandibles clicked in what his species considered laughter. Though it sounded more like breaking glass to most other races, that still suggests some might survive. Kiek's color patterns shifted to deep purple, indicating amusement. Statistical margin of error. In reality, the survival rate appears to be absolute zero. The data they were reviewing came from 17 different worlds where humans had established colonies. 17 worlds where local predators had made the fatal mistake of threatening human children who happened to be accompanied by their pets. Vex scrolled through the incident reports, each more ridiculous than the last. Look at this one from Kepler 442b. A razor-fang stalker, apex predator of that world, 8 feet tall with natural armor plating and neurotoxic claws, approached a human child and her companion animal. He paused, his translator hiccuping on what came next. The stalker was found 3 days later, in pieces, scattered across a 2-mile radius. The child was unharmed? Chicks asked, though she already knew the jibe. Answer: completely. She was discovered sitting next to her honey badger, sharing what humans call peanut butter sandwiches. The investigating team reported that both the child and the animal seemed rather pleased with themselves. Chix's tentacles writhed in what her species considered deep thought. "We need to understand the mechanics of this phenomenon. How does such a small creature consistently defeat apex predators from dozens of different worlds?" Vex brought up another file. "Perhaps this field report from Gliese 667C will illuminate things." The observer was Dr. Mikhail Brightstar from our Xenoethnology department. The hologram shifted to display a human settlement nestled in a valley between towering crystal formations. The recording began with Dr. Brightstar's familiar 4-armed silhouette, adjusting observation equipment. Day 47 of human behavioral study. Brightstar's recorded voice began. Subject designation: Emma continues to demonstrate typical human juvenile patterns. Age approximately 8 standard cycles. Accompanied by specimen designated biscuit of species Mellivora capensis, commonly known as honey badger. The recording showed a small human female with brown hair tied back in what humans called pigtails, running around the settlement's perimeter with a compact, stocky animal that looked deceptively harmless. The creature had distinctive black and white coloring and moved with surprising fluidity. The relationship between human juveniles and these creatures continues to perplex our research team, Brightstar continued. The animals show no signs of domestication in the traditional sense. They appear to form genuine partnerships with human children, displaying protective behaviors that exceed even those of bonded military units. Vex paused the recording. Note the terminology. Not pet ownership, but partnership. The distinction becomes important. They watched as young Emma played what humans called hide and seek with Biscuit. The honey badger would disappear into the underbrush, and Emma would count to 10 before searching. When she found him, both would engage in what appeared to be celebration behaviors involving much jumping and noise-making. Fascinating, Chicks observed. The animal is clearly intelligent enough to understand abstract game concepts, but these are the same creatures that single-handedly eliminate apex predators. The recording continued. Dr. Brightstar's voice took on a more urgent tone. Day 52. We have detected the approach of a pack hunting party. Species unknown, but thermal signatures suggest large, aggressive predators. I am maintaining observation distance as per protocol. The hologram showed shapes moving through the crystalline formations, using them as cover. Whatever was approaching did so with practiced stealth and obvious predatory intent. Emma continued playing, apparently unaware of the approaching danger. Biscuit, however, had gone completely still. The small animals stood between Emma and the direction of approach, every muscle tensed. The honey badger appears to have detected the threat, Brightstar's voice whispered. I am preparing to intervene if necessary, though human colonial protocols strongly discourage interference with natural predator-child dynamics. 3 creatures emerged from the crystal formations. They stood roughly 10 feet tall on powerful hind legs, with elongated skulls full of serrated teeth and arms that ended in wicked-looking talons. Their skin was a mottled gray-green that helped them blend with the local vegetation. Shadow hunters, Vex identified. Native apex predators of Gliese 6-7c. Pack hunters with distributed intelligence and acid-based blood. Extremely dangerous. In the recording, Emma finally noticed the creatures and her reaction was immediate, but not what most species would expect. She didn't scream. She didn't run. Instead, she placed her hands on her hips and spoke in a voice that carried clearly across the settlement. You cannot play here. This is where me and Biscuit live. The lead shadow hunter tilted its massive head, apparently as confused by this response as the watching researchers. Then it let out a sound that was part shriek, part roar, and pure menace. The other 2 spread out to flank the child. That was when Biscuit made his move. The honey badger didn't charge. He didn't roar or posture or engage in any of the dominance displays common among territorial animals. Instead, he simply walked forward with the casual confidence of someone who had absolutely nothing to prove. The lead shadow hunter, clearly not recognizing this small animal as a threat, ignored Biscuit entirely and continued advancing on Emma. This proved to be a fatal error in judgment. What happened next defied several laws of physics and most principles of biological combat. Biscuit reached the shadow hunter and, without any visible effort, seemed to flow up the creature's body like liquid death. In the space of perhaps 3 seconds, the apex predator went from confident aggressor to confused victim to motionless heap. The other 2 shadow hunters had enough time to register that their pack leader was now very thoroughly dead before Biscuit addressed them with the same casual efficiency. The entire encounter lasted less than 20 seconds. When the violence ended, Biscuit returned to Emma, who patted him on the head and offered him what appeared to be a snack from her pocket. Both then resumed their game of hide-and-seek as if nothing unusual had occurred. How? Chicks asked, her color patterns cycling through several shades of bewilderment. The shadow hunters outweighed that creature by several 100 pounds each. They possessed natural weapons, specifically evolved for killing. How does a 20-pound animal eliminate 3 apex predators in under 20 seconds? Vex had been analyzing the recording frame by frame. Watch the attack patterns. The honey badger targets specific nerve clusters, joint connections, and vital organs with surgical precision. But more than that, look at the shadow hunter's reactions. They are not just dying, they are confused. They cannot process what is happening to them. Psychological warfare? More than that. The honey badger attacks with such casual confidence that the predator's own instincts betray them. Their threat assessment systems cannot categorize an animal that shows no fear, no aggression, just absolute certainty of victory. Chicks extended a tentacle toward the display. There is something else. Watch the child's behavior throughout the encounter. They observed Emma again. She never showed fear, but more importantly, she never showed surprise. When the shadow hunters appeared, she reacted with the mild annoyance of someone whose playtime had been interrupted. When Biscuit eliminated the threats, she accepted it as a perfectly normal outcome. The human child expected this result, Vex realized. She has complete faith in her companion's ability to handle any threat. This is learned behavior, which means this has happened before. Chicks finished. Multiple times. The child has witnessed her honey badger eliminate threats so often that she considers it routine. They moved on to the next report. This one came from New Edinburgh, a human colony world that had been having trouble with creatures called void stalkers. The predators were incorporeal beings that could phase through solid matter and fed on fear itself. The incident report was filed by Captain Rex Ironside of the Colonial Defense Force. His account was dry and professional, but Vex could detect undertones of bewilderment throughout. At approximately 1,400 hours, 6-year-old Maya Starbright reported that the scary shadows were bothering her friend. Investigation revealed the presence of multiple void stalkers in the residential district. Standard containment protocols were initiated, though previous encounters had resulted in minimal success against these entities. Vex pulled up the tactical footage from the captain's helmet camera. It showed Maya, a small human with curly red hair, standing in what appeared to be her family's backyard. Beside her sat an utterly unremarkable honey badger that Maya had apparently named Pancake. Around them, reality seemed to shimmer and bend as the void stalkers manifested. These were creatures of pure malevolence, beings that existed primarily as living nightmares. They fed on terror and had been known to drive entire populations mad with fear. Maya looked up at the nearest manifestation and crossed her arms. Pancake does not like you. You should go away now. The void stalkers, being creatures of pure predatory instinct, naturally interpreted this as a challenge. They began to coalesce into more solid forms, preparing to demonstrate exactly why terrorizing human children was their specialty. Pancake stood up and walked toward the nearest void stalker with the same casual confidence that Biscuit had shown. The incorporeal predator, perhaps not understanding that this small animal represented any kind of threat, allowed Pancake to approach. What happened next violated several fundamental laws of physics, metaphysics, and common sense. Pancake somehow grabbed the void stalker, a being made of living shadow and malevolent energy, and proceeded to shake it like a dog toy. The creature's incorporeal nature provided no defense against an animal that apparently didn't care about things like physical impossibility or existing in the same dimensional plane. The void stalker's terrifying shriek quickly shifted from menacing to confused to genuinely frightened. The other void stalkers, witnessing their companion being manhandled by a 20-pound mammal, began to reconsider their life choices. When Pancake finished demonstrating his opinion of the first attacker, he turned toward them with expectant patience. The remaining void stalkers, creatures that had terrorized entire star systems, opted for what could generously be called a strategic withdrawal. In reality, they fled in panic, phasing back to whatever dimension they had emerged from and leaving behind only wisps of dissipating shadow. Maya clapped her hands in delight and offered Pancake what appeared to be a cookie from her lunchbox. The honey badger accepted this tribute with the dignity of a warrior accepting honors from a grateful population. Captain Ironside's report concluded. Threat neutralized. Recommend immediate deployment of human children and their companion animals to other worlds experiencing void stalker incursions. Whatever they are doing, it works. Vex closed the file and looked at his research partner. Kix, we are observing something that should not be possible. These honey badgers are consistently defeating threats that outclass them in every measurable category. Size, strength, supernatural abilities, technological advantages. Nothing seems to matter. Have you considered, Chix said slowly, her color patterns shifting to contemplative green, that we might be approaching this from the wrong angle? We keep trying to analyze how the honey badgers defeat these predators. Perhaps the more relevant question is why the predators lose. Vex's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Elaborate. Every species that has achieved spaceflight has done so through some combination of intelligence, cooperation, and the ability to recognize and respond to threats appropriately. We assess danger, we plan responses, we execute strategies based on probability and experience. Obviously, standard survival behaviors. Kix's tentacles gestured toward the data files. But what happens when you encounter something that operates outside those parameters entirely? Something that does not follow the rules that govern predator-prey relationships? Vex was beginning to understand. The honey badgers do not behave like prey animals. They show no fear, no submission, no recognition that they are outmatched. Their complete confidence confuses the predator's threat assessment systems. More than that, Chix continued. They approach every confrontation with absolute certainty of victory. Not bravado, not aggression, just calm assurance that they will win. From a psychological perspective, this creates a paradox in the predator's mind. They pulled up footage from yet another incident. This one from the mining world of Ferris Prime. A human child named Jake Copperfield had been exploring the settlement perimeter with his honey badger companion, appropriately named Trouble. The local predator was a plasma drake, a creature that fed on metal and could generate temperatures hot enough to melt steel. It had been responsible for destroying several mining installations and was considered unkillable by conventional means. The recording showed Jake sitting on a boulder, apparently cloud-watching, while Trouble napped in the shade beside him. The approach of the plasma drake registered on seismic sensors before it became visible. When the creature finally appeared, it was immediately obvious why conventional weapons had failed against it. The plasma drake stood nearly 15 feet tall, with scales that glowed white-hot and eyes like miniature suns. Steam rose from the ground where its feet touched, and the air around it shimmered with heat distortion. Jake looked up from his cloud watching and waved. "Hi there. That is a really neat trick with the fire. Can you do it in different colors?" The plasma drake, apparently not expecting commentary on its thermal display capabilities, paused in its advance. It tilted its massive head and regarded this strange little creature that showed no fear of imminent incineration. Trouble opened one eye, assessed the situation, and apparently decided that his nap was more important than whatever was happening. He went back to sleep. The plasma drake, perhaps sensing that its intimidation factor was being completely ignored, decided to demonstrate why things generally feared it. It reared back and unleashed a gout of flame hot enough to turn sand into glass. Jake applauded enthusiastically. "That was amazing! Do another one." This was clearly not the reaction the plasma drake had been expecting. It tried again, this time with even more intensity. The temperature spike was recorded by monitoring equipment at over 3,000 degrees. "Wow, you are really good at that," Jake said admiringly. "Trouble, you should see this. He is like a dragon." Trouble opened both eyes this time, looked at the plasma drake, and made a sound that the recording equipment translated as something between a sigh and a yawn. Then he stood up and walked toward the creature with the same casual confidence that every honey badger seemed to possess. The plasma drake, finally recognizing some kind of response, focused its attention on this approaching threat. What it saw was a 20-pound mammal showing absolutely no concern about walking into a heat field that should have killed it instantly. Trouble reached the plasma drake and proceeded to climb up its leg like it was a particularly warm tree. The creature's superheated scales, which had been melting everything they touched, seemed to have no effect on the honey badger whatsoever. Within moments, Trouble had reached the plasma drake's head and was apparently examining its cranial structure with professional interest. The drake, meanwhile, was making sounds that could best be described as confused whimpering. "I think he likes you," Jake called out helpfully. What followed was perhaps the most dignified defeat in predator history. The plasma drake, realizing that its primary defensive mechanism was completely useless against this small animal, and that said animal was now in a position to do unpleasant things to vital organs, carefully lowered itself to the ground in a gesture of submission. Trouble patted the drake's head approvingly, climbed down, and returned to his napping spot. The plasma drake, after a moment of apparent contemplation, quietly left the area and was never seen again. "The pattern is consistent," Vex observed. "The honey badgers do not actually defeat these predators through superior combat ability. They defeat them through psychological dominance. They are so completely confident in their ability to handle any situation that the predators convince themselves they cannot win." Chick's color patterns had shifted to excited yellow. It is a form of psychological warfare that operates on pure instinct level. The honey badgers project such absolute certainty that they disrupt the predator's decision-making processes. But that still does not explain how they are physically capable of carrying out their threats. A honey badger climbing on a plasma drake should be instantly incinerated, regardless of psychological factors. They were interrupted by an alert from the station's communication system. Dr. Brightstar was requesting an immediate conference call. His image appeared on the holographic display, and his usually calm demeanor showed signs of excitement. "Vex, Chicks, you need to see this. We have just recorded an incident that might explain everything." Dr. Brightstar's forearms gestured frantically at something off-screen. "We have been monitoring a human family on Arcturus 7, the Hendrix clan, with their daughter Lucy and her companion, a honey badger she calls Muffin." Vex's translator nearly choked on the name. Muffin? Human naming conventions for these creatures appear to follow no logical pattern, Brightstar confirmed. But listen to this. The planetary defense grid detected something approaching Arcturus 7. Something massive. Something that registers as a Class X extinction-level threat. Kiek's tentacles went rigid. "What kind of threat?" "A devourer ship." The station fell silent. Devourer ships were the stuff of nightmares across known space. Ancient, autonomous vessels that consumed entire planets, leaving nothing behind but empty vacuum. They had been responsible for wiping out at least 12 civilizations, and no military force had ever successfully engaged one. The ship is currently in orbit around Arcturus 7, Brightstar continued. But here is the interesting part. It has not begun the consumption process. Our sensors indicated deployed some kind of advanced scout entity to the surface 3 hours ago. Scouting for what? Vex asked. Unknown. But the entity landed approximately 50 meters from where Lucy was playing with Muffin. They watched as Brightstar transmitted the live feed. The surface of Arcturus 7 was a pleasant grassland dotted with human settlements. In a small meadow outside the main colony, a 7-year-old girl with blonde hair was teaching her honey badger what appeared to be a game involving sticks and jumping. The scout entity materialized without warning. It stood 12 feet tall, composed of what looked like living darkness shot through with veins of purple energy. Where it touched the ground, the grass withered and died. The air around it shimmered with malevolent power. Lucy looked up from her game and tilted her head. Oh, hello. Are you here to play too? We were just practicing jumping. The entity regarded her with what might have been eyes, though they appeared to be holes in reality itself. When it spoke, the sound bypassed normal hearing and went directly to the fear centers of the brain. Small flesh creature, I am the herald of consumption. This world and all upon it will be devoured. Prepare for obliteration. Lucy considered this announcement seriously. That sounds really mean. Muffin does not like mean things. Muffin, who had been examining a particularly interesting stick, looked up at the herald of consumption with mild curiosity. The cosmic entity, which had presumably faced down planetary defense forces and entire battle fleets, found itself being evaluated by a 20-pound mammal. I am beyond your comprehension, flesh spawn. I have witnessed the death of stars. I have consumed the dreams of entire civilizations. That is very impressive. Lucy agreed politely. But you are being loud, and Muffin is trying to concentrate on his stick. The herald paused, apparently trying to process this response. In all its eons of existence, spreading terror across the galaxy, it had never encountered someone who treated its pronouncements of cosmic doom as a noise complaint. Muffin set down his stick and approached the entity with the same casual confidence that every honey badger seemed to possess. The herald, standing 12 feet tall and radiating power that could unmake reality itself, watched this approach with what might have been confusion. Foolish creature. I am destruction incarnate. Your primitive biology cannot comprehend the forces I command. Muffin reached the herald and sat down directly in front of it. Then he did something that defied every law of physics, metaphysics, and common sense that Vex knew. He reached up and patted the entity on what might have been its leg. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The herald of consumption, cosmic destroyer of worlds, emitted a sound that the monitoring equipment could not properly translate. It sounded somewhere between surprise, confusion, and what could only be described as delight. What is this sensation? I feel. Warmth? Contentment? This is not fear. This is not terror. What have you done to me? Muffin continued patting, apparently satisfied that he had found the entity's appreciation for physical contact. Lucy giggled and clapped her hands. He likes you. Muffin is really good at making friends. Do you want to play our jumping game? The herald of consumption, destroyer of civilizations, looked down at the small mammal that was still patting its leg with obvious satisfaction. Something fundamental seemed to shift in its cosmic awareness. I do not understand. For millennia, I have spread fear and destruction. I have consumed worlds. But this is pleasant. Why do I feel pleasant? Because Muffin is the best, Lucy explained matter-of-factly. He makes everyone feel better, even when they are really, really grumpy. The monitoring station received an emergency transmission from the Devourer ship in orbit. The massive vessel, which had been preparing to begin planetary consumption, was apparently experiencing some kind of system malfunction. The ship is singing, Brightstar reported, his voice filled with disbelief. Its transmission arrays are broadcasting what can only be described as a lullaby across all frequencies. On the surface, the herald of consumption was now sitting cross-legged in the grass while Muffin had climbed into what passed for its lap. The entity was making soft humming sounds while Lucy demonstrated the proper technique for stick jumping. "I have decided," the herald announced, "that consumption is overrated. Perhaps instead of devouring this world I will protect it? Yes, I shall be its guardian. Would that be acceptable, small friend?" Lucy nodded enthusiastically. "That would be very nice. We can always use more friends. And Muffin really likes you." As if to confirm this, Muffin had apparently decided that the Herald of Consumption made an excellent napping spot. The cosmic entity, which had terrorized the galaxy for eons, was now serving as a pillow for a honey badger. The Devourer ship in orbit began broadcasting a different message entirely. Instead of the usual demands for surrender and preparation for consumption, it was now offering advanced medical technology, agricultural improvements, and what appeared to be recipes for something called cosmic cookies. Vex turned to Chicks with all 6 eyes wide. "Are we actually witnessing a honey badger converting a cosmic destroyer into a benevolent guardian through the power of friendship?" "The data suggests exactly that," Chicks replied, her color patterns cycling through every shade of bewilderment she possessed. "But how? What mechanism allows a terrestrial mammal to psychologically dominate entities that exist on a cosmic scale?" Dr. Brightstar's image leaned forward. "I have a theory about that. We have been analyzing the honey badger genetic structure for months now. What we found does not make sense from any known biological standpoint." "Explain," Vex demanded. "For sex, honey badgers appear to possess what can only be described as weaponized optimism. Their neural structure is unlike anything we have encountered. They literally cannot comprehend the concept of being unable to handle a situation. It is not courage or bravery. It is complete, fundamental certainty that they will prevail in any circumstances." Kix's tentacles writhed in thought. "A species-wide psychological trait that functions as reality-warping confidence?" "More than that," Brightstar continued. "Their confidence is so absolute that it affects the quantum probability fields around them. They do not just believe they will win. On a subatomic level, they alter the likelihood of their victory." Vex's mandibles clicked in understanding. They are unconscious reality manipulators. Their complete confidence in their ability to handle any threat actually makes them capable of handling any threat. But that still does not explain why they consistently choose to protect human children, Kix observed. "Actually, it does," Brightstar said, bringing up another file. "We monitored the bonding process between human children and honey badgers. Watch this." The recording showed a human family introducing their 5-year-old daughter to a young honey badger. The child, named Sophie, approached the animal with the fearless curiosity that seemed standard among human juveniles. "Hello, little friend," Sophie said, sitting down so she was at the honey badger's eye level. "Would you like to be my buddy?" The honey badger regarded her seriously for several moments. Then something remarkable happened. The animal's entire demeanor shifted. Where before it had seemed alert but relaxed, it now radiated protective vigilance. "The bonding process appears to be instantaneous and permanent," Brightstar explained. "Once a honey badger accepts a human child as its companion, it becomes psychologically invested in that child's safety and happiness. But human children do not seem to fear anything," Vex observed. "They approach dangerous situations with complete confidence that they will be protected." "Exactly. The children's absolute trust in their companions reinforces the honey badger's reality-altering confidence. It creates a feedback loop, where both species enhance each other's psychological certainty." Chicks was beginning to understand the full scope of what they were observing. So when a predator threatens a human child, it is not just challenging a honey badger. It is challenging a partnership that operates on principles of absolute mutual confidence. A partnership that unconsciously manipulates probability itself to ensure victory, Vex added. They returned their attention to the live feed from Arcturus 7. Lucy was now teaching the Herald of Consumption how to properly pet Muffin, while the former cosmic destroyer listened with rapt attention. "The key," Lucy was explaining seriously, "is to be really gentle but also let him know you care about him. Muffin likes it when people are sincere." The Herald of Consumption, using appendages that could unmake matter at the atomic level, carefully stroked Muffin's fur with infinite gentleness. "Like this. Small teacher? Perfect. See how his tail is wagging? That means you are doing great." In orbit above them, The Devourer ship had apparently decided to become the planet's most enthusiastic benefactor. It was now offering to establish trade routes, provide defensive coverage, and host cultural exchange programs. "We have our answer," Vex announced. "Honey badgers do not defeat cosmic-level threats through superior firepower or advanced technology. They defeat them through weaponized friendship backed by reality-altering confidence." Kix's color patterns had settled into contemplative gold. "It explains everything we have observed. The predators are not just outmatched physically. They are being converted. Every defeat we documented was actually a successful recruitment." Dr. Brightstar nodded. "We went back and checked on the previous incident sites. The Razorfang Stalker from Kepler 442b is now serving as the settlement's playground equipment. Children ride on its back while it makes happy growling sounds. The Shadow Hunters from Gliese 667c have become the colony's night watch, protecting the settlement from other threats. The Plasma Drake opened a metalworking business and is apparently quite successful. And the Void Stalkers? They have established what humans call a haunted house attraction for entertainment purposes. They generate controlled scares for willing participants and donate the proceeds to children's educational programs." Vex felt his entire understanding of predator-prey relationships shift. "We have been approaching this incorrectly from the beginning. Humans and honey badgers are not defeating threats. They are converting them into allies through a combination of absolute confidence and unconditional friendship. A psychological warfare technique so advanced that the targets do not realize they are being conquered," Chicks agreed. "They think they are being adopted." On Arcturus 7, Lucy had apparently decided that her new cosmic friend needed a proper introduction to human customs. She was now braiding flowers into what passed for the Herald's hair while explaining the rules of hide-and-seek. "The most important thing to remember," she said seriously, "is that everyone gets a turn to hide and everyone gets a turn to seek. That way it is fair for everybody." The Herald of Consumption, former terror of the galaxy, nodded solemnly. "I understand. Small teacher. Fairness is important. I shall remember this wisdom." Muffin, still using the cosmic entity as a pillow, opened one eye to check that the flower braiding was meeting his standards, apparently decided it was acceptable, and went back to sleep. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy through superior technology or military might. They had done it through an unconscious partnership with reality-warping mammals that defeated enemies by making them into friends. "We need to file a report with the Galactic Council," Vex said finally. Chicks's tentacles gestured toward the display showing Lucy, Muffin, and their new cosmic guardian playing in the meadow. "What exactly do we tell them?" Vex considered this. How do you explain to the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy that they had all been out-evolved by a species that conquered through friendship, backed by small mammals that could apparently rewrite the laws of physics through sheer optimism? "We tell them the truth," he decided. "That humanity represents a completely new form of expansion, not through conquest or colonization, but through conversion. Every world they settle, every threat they encounter, becomes part of their extended family." "And the honey badgers?" "The honey badgers are the enforcement mechanism. They ensure that the conversion process is 100% successful." As if to emphasize this point, the recording showed Lucy teaching the Herald of Consumption how to make daisy chains while Muffin supervised with obvious approval. The former destroyer of worlds was approaching this new skill with the same intensity it had once applied to cosmic annihilation. "The galaxy will never be the same," Chicks observed. "No," Vex agreed, watching as the Devourer ship began broadcasting children's songs in 17 different languages. "It will be much better." In the meadow on Arcturus 7, Lucy looked up at their monitoring satellite with that peculiar awareness that human children seem to possess. "Hi there," she called out, waving at the camera. "Do you want to come down and play too? We have lots of room, and I think Harold would really like to meet you. He is very nice once you get to know him." The Herald of Consumption waved enthusiastically with several appendages while holding up a completed daisy chain for their inspection. "Greetings, distant observers. Would you like to learn the secrets of flower arrangement? It is most enlightening." Muffin opened both eyes, looked directly at the camera, and made a sound that somehow conveyed both invitation and absolute certainty that they would be welcome. Vex looked at Chicks. Chicks looked at Vex. Dr. Brightstar was already checking shuttle schedules. For scientific purposes, of course. Brightstar said quickly. We need to study this phenomenon up close. Of course, Vex agreed. Purely scientific. Absolutely, Chicks confirmed, her color patterns shifting to excited anticipation. We would be failing in our duty as researchers if we did not investigate thoroughly. As they began preparations for their descent to Arcturus 7, Vex reflected on what they had learned. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy through war or technology. They had done it through the simple but revolutionary concept that everyone, no matter how terrifying, could benefit from having a friend. And their honey badger partners had made sure that resistance was not just futile, but impossible. After all, how do you fight against an enemy whose victory condition is making you happy? The answer, as every failed predator in the galaxy had discovered, was simple. You do not. You join the family instead.